the belief in that system is that the departed spirit of your spouse clings to you. It's Rwanda, or the ghost. It clings to you, and it only goes when you are cleansed. That is the understanding in that tradition. But the Bible comes in and says, no, this is not true. When people die, they die. There's nothing like there's a ghost that is clinging to you that can only disappear once you have been cleansed. As a matter of fact, even the process of cleansing is dismissed. It doesn't carry any water. So, that faith thing is what really now helps you to understand life and its meaning, and everything else now is filtered through that particular lens. Same faith. So this same faith thing is important because it acts like a canvas to life. Number two, it acts as a wall of protection from worldliness and other forms of evil. Now, I'm an Adventist. I read the Bible. And when I read the Bible, I discover things God says there that should not be done, things that should be done and how they should be done. I discover when I read the Bible things that are important there as far as life is concerned, and how I become protected as a result of this faith factor. So it acts as a wall of protection from worldliness. And then also faith factor, or religion, if you want, is the perennial teacher of values. The Bible speaks of all these scriptures which are able to make you wise for salvation through Christ Jesus. It opens your eyes, your spiritual eyes. You begin to value certain things because of that particular factor. And then, of course, in the event of having children, there's a lot of confusion if somebody goes to this church and this other person, I attended a meeting where one woman who was married to somebody from a Catholic background. The husband was a Catholic. And one day when I think it must have been a child who was being enrolled in school, and on the form there, as the mother was filling that form, providing the information there, there was something there where they were asking the religion of the child, and the mother wrote Seventh-day Adventist. The father protested. Who said that my child is an Adventist? My child, as far as I'm concerned, because I'm the head of the household, is Catholic. So it creates that confusion, and kids don't really know where to go, especially in a situation where you have both parents strong in what they believe. If they are Jehovah's Witness, they feel that the children must go. They must be members of that particular church. And if a mother is Adventist, she also feels that children should be Adventists. So this same faith factor is the most important one. And this is a reason why, if you read the account in Genesis, I think in Genesis, the story of Isaac and Rebekah, where Abraham says, I do not want you to find a wife from among the people from this place where we live. You remember Abraham once upon a time used to be a citizen of the city of Urim. And then God in Genesis chapter 12 came to him and said, Abraham, I want you to leave this place and go to a place that I will show you. So Abraham traveled from that place, Urim, and went to Canaan. And the people, the dwellers of Canaan, were not worshippers of the true God. They had beautiful women in Canaan. But Abraham understood that if Isaac got a child from among people who did not worship the true God, it would obviously compromise his life. And so it wasn't that he sent his servant to Mesopotamia, where Abraham originally came from, because there he could find people who worshipped the true God. So this is very, very important, and we need to stress it because when you go wrong on this, you have really, really gone wrong. Issues in courtship, we talk about the voice of significant others. You are not an island. There are people who mean well to you, your parents, your friends, especially your parents. It's not just a matter of, I am going to inform them that this is the decision I have made. I want to marry this person, or I'm going out with this person. It is more than that. You need to consult with your parents over this important matter. Because number one, they have gone through life. They do have an experience you do not have yourself. Many young people deceive themselves into thinking, oh, my parents are just old folks who do not understand life as we understand it today. You are fooling yourself. Your parents, your father, your mother, these people have gone through life. They do have an experience you do not have yourself. So consult them, talk to them. And then, of course, when you talk over people who will not be malicious, people who have the interests of your well-being at heart, you can't think of anyone better than your parents. So talk to them. I made this point last week, and I'm going to hammer on this again. Many young people think their social lives are supposed to be a prison. They're supposed to be something that is exclusive, something that they are not willing to share with their parents. And in doing this, they make a lot of mistakes. You will go wrong if you have parents. It doesn't even matter that they don't go to church. They still have that experience. And of course, if you are led into things that are not according to the will of God, then of course at that point you need to obey God rather than man. But the important thing here is that of all people, the ones who mean well to you more than any other are your parents. So take time, speak to them on issues that have to do with your social life. I have girls, I have one boy in the family, and the rest are girls. I talked to my boy, Mwila. He's not yet married. He lives in the US where he is working. And I ask him time and again, son, where are you on this issue of, girlfriend and social life? And we have developed a very good rapport when it comes to those issues, and he's able to tell. And my girl, children, the female children, those ones generally tend to be on the side of, they are silent about their issues. Of course, two of them are old enough to discuss issues that have to do with their social life, and two of them are not really there. They're just young kids. But the whole point is that whether they are female or male, they should be able to speak, to come to me and say, Daddy, these are the issues. Because if they don't, they would definitely make mistakes in life. I have made mistakes from which they can learn, and I have, scored some successes as far as social life is concerned, from which they can learn. And so to simply assume, I have my issues, these are issues, our father, our mother, they will have nothing to do with this, you will be making a big, big mistake. So the voice of significant others, like your parents and people who love you, your uncle, your auntie, all these people who are very important in your life. Don't just gloss over this particular point and say, no, like I heard one young man say, for me, I will marry a human being so I don't have to consult anybody. I don't care about anything. What is important is that the person I will marry is a human being. Then, of course, we talked last time about attention to desirable practical attributes. You remember those things that we talked about last time when we handled the subject of enhancing one's chances for marriage. As a man, as a young woman, those practical attributes, you need to pay attention to those things that we talked about in that presentation. For example, for men, we talked about the point of being responsible, the point of being practical, being resourceful, being creative, and all those other things that we talked about in that presentation. For women, we talked about things like such, like not being lovers of money and fast life, and not giving in to sex, and so on and so forth. Those important, desirable traits, you need to pay attention to them in the process, in the period of courtship there, because those are the practical things that come out, what people are able to see in order to either give you a good report or a bad report, for either to say this is a good guy, this is a nice girl. Those are the things that you need to pay particular attention to. Issues in courtship, you need to understand be aware of the issues of temperament, the personality thing, that some people are extroverts, meaning they are given to much talking, and some people are introverts, they are shy, they are quiet people. That whole thing to do with temperaments, people who are choleric, strong-willed individuals, people who are sanguine, individuals who take a good laugh, and they're always, talking, and they're all able to find something to say out of every situation. People who are phlegmatic, who have a good sense of humor, and people who are melancholy, the quiet, moody type. You need to be aware of all these issues in courtship, and then also the aspect which especially as you get into marriage. But before you get there, if your courtship is really serious, you need to have some idea. You need to have an understanding of what is known as the five love languages. All of us, are categorized in each of those five love languages, and you need to know where the person that you are connected to, um, uh, what sort of love language they speak. We talk of the five love languages, words of affirmation. There are people who will only feel that you love them if you keep telling them how much you love them. The words of affirmation. There are people whose love language is that of gifts. If you don't remember the anniversaries, the birthdays, and just giving of gifts, they will not feel that you love them. Some people, it's acts of service, just helping, giving them a helping hand. They're not really into flowers per se, but to them, what really appeals to them, the love language they speak is one of acts of service. So these are things that you need to pay attention to in the process of courtship. They are very, very important to understand, and then of course something that um, um, is critical, again, more than any other thing, is your relationship with God. That relationship, which is different, really. We talked about same faith. Same faith, simply means that if you are a Jehovah's Witness, then by all means marry a Jehovah's Witness. If you're a Catholic, by all means go for a Catholic. If you are Adventist, go for an Adventist. But to be an Adventist does not necessarily mean that you have a good relationship with God. There are many Seventh-day Adventists who do not have any relationship with God. To them, going to church is just one of those things. So now we must move from that aspect, because many people complain. They say that in the church itself, the guys that we find, as a matter of fact, guys from outside the church or girls from outside the church are even better. There is that thing that many young people, many young ladies complain about people in the church, young people in the church, same faith, and yet all you get is a raw deal from people of the same church, which is where, although this is important, the one that is now even more important is the aspect, the fact that you need to have a relationship, a living relationship with God. When you have a living relationship with God, you will be able to navigate through the social landscape successfully. You will, because you see, God is going to be guiding. And of course, we last time we talked about a living relationship with God means that you are taking your time to read the Bible, because the Bible is the book that reveals the will of God. And then you are taking the time to talk to God. God speaks to you through the Bible, his written word. But you must also take time to speak to him through prayer. And so this interaction between God and yourself, this is where you will get the guidance that God will give. As you read the scriptures, there you will find how God has given direction to certain things, the promises he has put forth in his word, the doctrines he wants us to abide by, how he wants us to live as his children, all those things, including things that are complicated. And because they are complicated, you can go before God and say, I do not understand the meaning of this, and I want you to help me. For example, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 43, it says, it speaks of loving people who are your enemies, praying for people who are your enemies. Now, how can I do this? How can I pray for somebody who happens to be my enemy? Here is where prayer becomes critical. God will direct you. He will lead you into understanding how that sort of thing works out in real life. So that is a very, very, very important thing, because that is what leads everything else. In fact, like I said last time, if you were to forget all the things that we have talked about here, that is the one thing I would like you to remember. Your relationship with God, who then takes it upon himself to guide you through the landscape of social life, so that you do not make mistakes. And I think that I'm going to close here so that we can have about 30 minutes of interaction.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We have learned quite a lot. So at this time, we're going to have questions. And the order of questions are going to be as follows. I'm going to read out the questions which were shared in the chat box during the time of presentation. Thereafter, we're going to have people raising their hands, and then we're going to give them a chance. And then we'll go to the questions that are on YouTube. If people who are watching us, who have joined us via YouTube, have got questions, we're going to have those questions. And then we're going to have questions from previous meetings. If there are any questions from previous meetings, then we'll close at that point. So going to the questions that were shared in the chat box. The first question was, how do we be at the right place with this pandemic? Because walking around, there is no church is done online nowadays. No meetings are allowed. I think I'll read two, and then since we've got four, I'll read two, then the pastor will address them. Then the second question says, is it right to end a courtship relationship with someone who hid from their partner, that they have a child for almost a year? That's the second question. I'll read the second question again. Is it right to end a courtship relationship with someone who hides from their partner that they have a child for almost a year? So those are our first two questions. Pastor, you can address those ones, then I'll read the next two. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for those two questions. Let me begin with the first one. What we see now, even though we call it the new normal, I think at some point life will get back to normal. I am a pastor myself, and I do know that Within the Lake Road district where I pastor, we have 4 churches. 3 of them have, we've never closed any church, any physical worship. People still go to church. And the other one we opened 2 weeks ago. So what you're talking about is the exception. It's really not the normal. And I know that the pandemic at some point will have to disappear. Life will get back to normal. And the point that I would like you to remember in that principle of being in right places is that it's not just about doing. It's not just about going to places as much as it is about doing the right things. Because where you are, it could be at the hospital, it could be in a shop, it could be wherever you might be. What is important is to be found doing the right things, helping people, being there when you are needed, and so on and so forth. That is more important than physical presence, at the church or at some place. When we talk of Rebecca finding herself at the well, she was doing the right thing. She went to draw water, but notice when she was at the well there, the servant asked a question. He said, "Can you please give me water to drink?" And the young lady says, "Sure, I'm going to give you water to drink, but more than just giving you water to drink, I will also give water to," I think it must have been 12 camels that the servant was with. And you can imagine giving water to all those many animals. It was clear that this was a woman with a very good heart. So other than just being in the right place, what is important is to be doing right things. That is when you will be noticed. The second question on people being truthful, being transparent. If you have a child and then hiding until 12 months later, that gives you an opportunity. For me to say that, is it right to get out of that relationship? I'm not going to say, I will not say whether this is right or wrong, but what I will say is that from that particular situation, you are able, God is revealing an important thing to you that may actually show how the relationship may pan out someday in the future. If somebody is not going to be truthful enough to just put things as they are right now, because they are afraid that their lover would ditch them, then there is something wrong there. We tackled this issue last time, and what I said at that time was that generally, when it comes to women, when a woman has a child or children, they will be open about that thing because they know that they are coming into this relationship as a total package. There is the issue of children. If you cannot love me as a mother to this child, then if you can't love my child, then perhaps you will not love me in the manner I would like to be loved. So generally, women will just put things the way they are. They will indicate if they have children that they do have children. If a woman has a child, generally she will indicate. But to answer your question, I would say that situation.
Winfrida, would you please mute your mic? Winfrida, would you please mute your mic? Thank you, Pastor. You can continue.
Yes, I was just saying that actually provides you an opportunity to see how these whole things someday may end up becoming. And, with that, armed with that information, you are able to decide how you want to proceed. You may decide to proceed the way of forgiveness, so just talking things over and then moving on. Or you may decide, well, a person who acts in this manner cannot be trusted, and so let me move out. You see this as a red flag, like God is saying, you are not safe in this. So it's really all up to you. But what it does is that it gives you an opportunity to then see this person, their true colors, and then you can decide what you want to do with that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor, for the feedback. We'll continue with the questions. From the chat box, I think we have got 8 in total. We've done 2. So I think I'll read 3. Hope we'll be able to remember them, and then I'll read the last 3. So the third question says, what is the difference among these 3? Relationship, courtship, and dating. What is the difference among these 3? Relationship, courtship, and dating. Then the fourth says, how can one correct the mistake that he or she made of lying to his or her partner in the early stages of the relationship, since in the early stages of the relationship, things were not certain about the seriousness of the relationship, but it's gotten at a serious point. But now, can one correct the mistake of some lies made in the past? That was a mouthful. I'll read it very quickly again. How can one correct the mistake that he or she made of lying to his or her partner in the early stages of the relationship? Since in the early stages of the relationship, things were not certain about seriousness of the relationship, but can one of lies made in the past? Then, just about lies, I'll read this one saying, in line with the question about lies, is it right to tell someone you are not available when you see no hope of being together, even if you are still single? In line with the question about lies, is it right to tell someone you are not available when you see no hope of being together, even if you are still single? Those are the 3 questions. Pastor, you can address them, please.
All right, thank you very much for those 3 questions. The first one, dating, I think I said something about it, although just in brief passing. But dating means that you are going out on dates. You are actively getting out there and meeting people and spending time with them. We could even say further that dating someone means you are seeing somebody specifically with a purpose and on a regular basis. So you are spending time with a person or persons in hopes of finding a committed relationship. Courting or courtship, I said, this is a period during which a couple develops a romantic relationship before getting married. Now, in dating, the romance aspect may not necessarily be there because the whole focus of the relationship is basically just friendship, and out of that friendship, romance can actually develop. Relationship can handle the both courtship as well as dating, as well as other relationships other friendships that may be of a nature like a guy and another guy. These are friends. That is a relationship. I could have a relationship with a colleague at work. I could have a relationship with my uncle. So relationship, therefore, embraces all friendships. It could be a dating friendship. It could be a courting friendship. It could be a friendship between a man and a fellow man. It's a friendship. It is a relationship. Now, how to correct the mistake of lying in the early stages? You know, it's a wonderful thing to be a Christian, because in Christianity, we all understand that we have sinned and have become, or so fallen in terms of the glory of God itself. So there is no one really who can stand up and pick the stone to throw at the woman. You remember this story in John 8. Stone at anyone, because we are all guilty. What is important is that you need to be man enough to just say, I actually made a mistake. I lied about this. The truth is this. When you do this, you are showing more maturity than to continue living in a lie. And remember what I said? I said, all of us, no one can pick a stone to throw at anybody. And this is the beauty of it, because even the person to whom the lie was, the person to whom you lied, there are also sinners. There are areas where they are falling short of the glory of God. But I am sure they will be willing to listen if you are genuine and you can say it as it is, that when you said what you said, you were actually just lying. And in this case, you are asking for forgiveness. That is the way to do it. Question number 3 has to do with a person who is okay. You are seeing you. There's a person who is interested in you, but then you feel really there's no hope. Is that how? Can you just briefly read it to me again, so that I address it correctly?
All right, Pastor. In line with your question about lies, is it right to tell someone you are not available when you see no hope of being together, even if you are still single?
Okay.
I can read.
You are not available, indeed. Um, it's true that you are single, but you are not available to this particular proposal. That is, really just what you are saying. You are not available to this particular proposal. That is how I understand it. So a person comes and asks, maybe here let me repeat what my wife said last week when we talk of these proposals and these manifestos. One of the reasons why we people fail is that they we rush. This is just like a child who is in grade 1 rushing to grade 5. It's a process. Love is a process. You cannot just jump from nowhere and then begin to talk of marriage. At the point I was finally throwing my manifesto to the lady I married, I was 99% sure that when I say what I will say, she will say yes. Because there was a process to it. You don't just get there and begin to talk of this and that. And this is the reason why many times people get put off. So that's why dating is important. Create a relationship, a friendship. And as this relationship moves, as it keeps moving, you can begin to see you, the person who has the interest, and even the other person. I indicated last time that when somebody says no, it does not necessarily mean that it is a no. I have a friend of mine who's been married for um, almost 20 years now. And at the time, he was canvassing, trying to talk to this lady issues of love. The girl wasn't interested. She absolutely, I mean, she did not think this would be the guy. It wasn't in her mind. But the guy, kept talking, the friendship, and this thing continued until finally the girl ended up falling in love with this guy, and today they are in a beautiful relationship with three children. So this question, I wanted to give it um, that take as well, because sometimes somebody may think there's really nothing to this. This is hopeless, and many times this assertion can even be true because you've seen, you've analyzed, and you have come to conclude that this person really is hopeless. When you look at all the key factors, you can only perhaps see 2 out of the 10 things that are important. There's only one thing or two things, and you conclude, therefore, that this will not take me anywhere. But at the same time, it is also true that when you begin to know the person, it's possible to begin to see things the other way around, and before you know it, that friendship can blossom into one of romance and finally into marriage itself. But to answer your question, you are simply saying you are not available to this particular proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pastor. I'm going to read the last questions we have together, and then I'll ask if there are any questions from those people who have joined us on YouTube. Then I'll ask people to raise their hands. Then we can go to questions from previous meetings. So the next question reads, how do you make a relationship spiritual without you being called too spiritual or boring? And apart from prayer and Bible study, what are some of the practices that can help a relationship to grow spiritually? I read it again. How do you make a relationship spiritual without you being called too spiritual or boring? And apart from prayer and Bible study, what are some of the practices that can help a relationship to grow spiritually? The next question reads, in this era, is it possible for someone to be single for the rest of his life or her life? Not that the person is normal, no health conditions attached. I read that again. In this era, is it possible for someone to be single for the rest of his or her life? Not that the person is normal, no health conditions attached. The next question reads, is it okay starting relationship with someone not with the same faith or maybe not a Christian at all, but believing you may change them? I read that again. Is it okay starting a relationship with someone not with the same faith, or maybe not a Christian at all, but believing you can change them? Then I'll read my the last question that came direct in my inbox. Um, okay. So the question reads: how can you deal with or help a lady who, when you ask to get into a relationship, they say they want God to speak to them in order to say yes, but they show signs of loving you or accommodating you, and you really love them? I'll read that again. How can you deal with or help a lady who, when you ask to get into a relationship, they say they want God to speak to them in order to say yes, but they show signs of loving you or accommodating you, and you really love them? Yeah, those are the questions that we have. Pastor, you can address them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions. Question number one, too spiritual and boring. How can you create the type of friendship that will not be viewed as, where you are viewed as you are just into the Bible, Mrs. White, and nothing else. First of all, it is important, like I said, that the basis of your relationship, romantic relationship, must be friendship. You remember we talked about friendship versus lover. Friendship is important because it provides an opportunity for you to exploit subjects of common interest. Now, if the whole thing is just okay, the beauty and everything, and you notice in my presentation, I did not even talk about the beauty aspect, and also the that the guy has to be this and that. Even though this is important, it's very, very important that you get somebody you are comfortable with as far as the outward is concerned. I didn't want to go into that because of time constraints. Things that I left out to, 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 to leave more time for interaction. But it is important here to understand that the basis of a relationship is friendship first and foremost. Okay, we find ourselves gravitating toward each other because of common interests. There are things we will be talking about. There are things we can discuss. Our love of science, our love of children, our love of whatever it is, so that the focus is taken away from romance. Romance, as in, women love romantic guys. That I use this negatively. The thing that slowly leads you into becoming physical, kissing, hugging, and finally leading you to sex. So it's the focal point has to be friendship. And now you ask the question, what can I do to bring about that kind of a relationship where I am not viewed as just a spiritual, boring guy? What you need to do is to find out the areas of interest. As far as in this case, I take it that this question is asked by a guy, not a girl. So find out, okay, what is this person interested in? What are their hobbies? What at a social angle? What things interest them? Um, if this question came from a woman, you'll be thinking of, okay, guys are interested in, this is just an example, so don't, whether it's spiritual or not is not really the point. Guys are interested in sports, They are interested in, all these things that appear to be, male focused. So try to find out what could be the areas of interest of this, particular friend. Here is the reason why I included, very briefly the area of, 5 love languages. I didn't want to go into the details, but what 5 love languages will show is that if you know what sort of, what you must do in order for your friend to feel loved, and you begin to work on those things, you will be scoring greatly. Similarly, in this situation, if you begin to focus on the areas of interest, as far as your girl is concerned, it will bring more bonding to you, because now it's no longer just the issues of the Bible and Mrs. White. Now, of course, these are important, and sometimes the reason why people tend to think people are boring is that we take ourselves too seriously. We behave as if we live in heaven when we actually live here on earth. We frown upon anything that is human, and we can't discuss this topic and that topic, and the only things we can talk about are, things from the Bible and things from Mrs. White. Then we cease to be real people living on earth. So try to be real. And I know what I'm talking about. When you are a young man, there's, as you read the Bible and you begin to see what God wills of you as a young man, you begin to take yourself too seriously, to the point where no one is really comfortable to be with you. So be real. You are a human being, and when I say real, be real, I do not mean you start doing things that are forbidden by God. I'm just saying be real in the sense of being a human being. Be like Jesus Christ. The way Jesus was, if you read Luke chapter 15, guys, evil people actually like chilling. Actually, Christ himself liked chilling with evil people. He was criticized by the religious leaders of his day. This guy likes sitting with all these crooked people. You see, he did not condone their sinful acts. He didn't. But he loved them as people. He was real. Jesus was not a type of religious leader who repelled people because he was a boring guy. No, he understood if when it became important for him to attend social gatherings, like when Simon invited him to a feast, he went there. In John 2, when he was invited to a wedding feast, he went there. So be that, and also find out what are the areas of interest for this woman you are interested in. The issue of single life for life, when one has no physical challenges, no illness. Yes, it is possible. And the sooner we realize this, the better we will be. Because the truth of the matter is that there are people who, even though there is nothing about them in terms of the physiological functioning of a human body, they are perfectly human, and yet they will not be married. Yet they will not marry without any of those conditions. Because the way marriage is, especially on the side of women, is that you wait. You can't just throw yourself to a man and say, okay, marry me. So now if no one comes to you, and yet your life is perfectly okay in terms of how your systems function physiologically, but nobody comes. So it's all there. It's not an automatic thing. When God created marriage in Eden at the beginning point, when sin hadn't yet entered, this was going to be the norm for every single human being. But after sin entered, everything changed. There were people like Methuselah who lived for more than 960 years, and others who lived for, they were born and immediately they came into life, they died. So, life is not automatic, that the blessings that will accrue to me are the same ones that will accrue to another person. That person who may not be married, God will also bless them in other things that he may not bless other people with. That is just life. That is how it is, to answer that question. Then changing somebody, getting into a relationship with a non-Adventist or somebody who is not even a Christian in order for you to change them. The Bible doesn't say that that would be the way to either do evangelism or even change people. You cannot change anybody. Only God can change people. If we ourselves find it extremely difficult to change ourselves, do you really think it would be easy to change somebody else? So this method clearly is out, and we must not tempt ourselves. We must not even tempt God. This is not the way to do evangelism. This is not the way to, the way to conduct courtship. If our intention is to marry, this formula is a theologically wrong formula as far as marriage relationships are concerned. Then the fourth question, somebody who says, I can only say yes if God speaks to me. That person they are deceiving themselves, because God will not do that. You see, the reason why God will not come out and pinpoint and say to you that this is the one, if in the relationship you begin to experience problems, God doesn't want to be blamed. Say, okay, you are the one who actually, you wanted me to do this. There are very rare cases where God has done this. For example, the prophet in the Bible. You have read about that prophet in the Bible, who God told to marry a prostitute. You have read that particular one. But that is not the norm. That is not, you cannot even form a teaching from the Bible based on that injunction by God to that particular prophet, because there God was simply teaching a lesson to the Israelites. He was saying, you see, I have been very faithful to you as a God, as a father, but you have been very unfaithful to me as a people. That God wanted to demonstrate that particular teaching through that injunction to that particular prophet. But you cannot use that and say, God has to speak to me in order for me to agree. He will not do that. He will not do that. The way God will do it is simply to let you use your common sense to go through the things that we have been talking about here, the factors, the issues in courtship. Look at all these things and see where you stand. This guy who is talking to me, is he the right guy when I look at A, B, C, D? Am I happy? Have I consulted? But not the thing of God coming to you to say, no, God will not do that. He won't, because that is not how he works. Lest when things go bad, you begin to cry and say, it was God who said yes to this. It must be your decision. And by the way, on this is the reason why you can't say that, you see, God has only one person in mind that you can marry. That is a lie. God can even have 20. He can even have more than 20 people who can all be good ones to make you happy. But it's up to you now, using these things that we have been talking about, where you say, okay, this guy is okay, but because there is this thing that is not there, or there is this, I love somebody who, I can be singing with, I sing myself, I'm just giving this example. So then you decide on your own, but God gives you the options, and it's up to you really. All of these 50 people can be right people, assuming that you have followed the things that we are talking about here. But it's up to you now to determine where you want to go, so that you don't come back and say it was God who actually led me into this. Thank you very much. Hello, are we there?
Yes, Pastor. Thank you very much for the responses. I'll ask you if there are any questions from YouTube. If there are any people who are able to see who are also on YouTube, please help us. If there are any questions, please just read all of them for us, and then the pastor can address them. Thereafter, we'll have people raising their hands, and then we'll close with questions from previous meetings. Any questions from YouTube? Going once, going twice, going thrice. Okay, let's have people raise their hands. If there are those who could not type their questions but would want to speak, please raise your hands. Okay, as people are raising their hands, I'll start. Pastor, I also have a question. What do you do in an event where initially when you are starting, everything seems to be all right? Let's say you are seeing this lady, and as you are starting, she's an Adventist, and everything else that you are looking for is there. Then, few years down the line, things change. Let's say perhaps you get married, and then maybe say 5 or 10 years down the line, this person finds some new information, I can put it, and then leaves whatever they believed. Let's say if they were Christian, they stop being Christian, maybe they become atheist, they start drinking, and a lot of things maybe change. How will you handle that, especially when maybe you're already in marriage and you have children, then someone just changes suddenly? Yes, as we are waiting for others to ask. Thank you.
Okay, let me quickly answer that question. Life is very tricky in the sense that to start well does not mean that you will automatically end well. And not to start well does not automatically mean that you will not end well. We do have the example, although this is not in the social sphere, but we do have the example from the Bible concerning the Apostle Paul. If you go to 2 Timothy chapter 4, you read 7, 8 there, he says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith, and henceforth um, um, my reward is, there waiting for me, not only for me, but to them that love the Lord. When you look at how he started as somebody who persecuted God's people, but he had an encounter with God, and he ended up finishing well. So life is tricky. The mere fact that you started well does not mean that you will end well. Again, the mere fact that you started doing things the way they were supposed to be done. And along the way, you forget, and then you just assumed love is going to work itself automatically in this relationship and keep us moving. It won't. If it is not watered, the issues, the important things that are supposed to happen in a love relationship for it to grow and for it to be maintained, if those ones are not done, it will obviously go bad. The relationship may even end in a divorce. But we all don't know. I'm in a relationship today with my wife. Only God knows how it will end. But suffice to say that, today what is critical is that I do what I need to do today. That is what is important. And then I can leave matters of the future to the future. As long as each day that comes, I find myself praying to God. I find myself praying for my wife, praying for the children, and asking God to lead me and to help me to live that life. Obviously, mistakes will be there, but the intention to do the will of God is there. That is what is important, moment by moment, day by day. What lies in the future, when that happens, God will obviously give his grace to be sufficient to the person who finds himself or herself in that particular situation. The bad thing about marriage is that you cannot divorce a person on account of the fact that you've just discovered that she had a child outside marriage. That's why taking your time during courtship is important. Like I said, there are certain things that can only be revealed with time. So don't rush, because once you get into marriage, you cannot use the thing of, I discovered that there is a child or there is this, therefore, I'm going to get out. Or that the woman has changed and therefore I must also pull out. There are certain things that the Bible says when they happen, one is at liberty. For example, the issue of infidelity, where infidelity has happened, the other party is free to decide what they want to do. But otherwise, you can't go into marriage and because this has happened, therefore you need to pull out. That's the reason why it is important that people don't rush into marriage, because marriage is a it's a lifelong thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pastor. I can see no one has raised their hands. I'll ask if the questions from last meeting can be read, please. I'm informed that there are questions from previous meetings. They can come at this time as quickly as possible. You can just read all of them, and then the pastor will address them. Then we'll have to close.
All right. Thank you, Shimuka. The questions, the ones I have are two. The first question was coming from a sister who was asking to say, coming from a background where the family has never been Adventist and they have lived far away from Adventism, how do such people, upon wanting to decide to get into relationships, where do they draw their inspiration? Like, they've never been into an Adventist church, but with time they turn out to be inspired and become Adventist, to have the Adventist principles. Where can they draw inspiration from to be in a good and stable kind of Adventist relationship? That was the first question. And the second question was from another sister as well, who was saying they had gotten into a relationship with this Adventist guy who further decided to get married to another lady within the same church. And then they are experiencing a situation where they feel intimidated by that guy because the person keeps wanting to be close to them, despite the fact that they are married, always tries to get close to them, wanting to be near them, to seem like maybe there's still a thing between them. What can they do? They had options of leaving the church, going to another church. Is it okay for them to leave, go to another church, or there is a way they can resolve such a situation? That person is married in the church and they still go after them every now and then. What can they do? Can they leave the church, go to another church, or there is something they can do? Those are the two questions in front of this.
Let me begin with the last question. First of all, I sympathize with the person who had to go through such a traumatic experience. And my word to our young men, please don't try for with hearts. We talked about the fact of some people being, what we would label ladies' men. Don't try for with hearts, because once a woman begins to feel that this is probably the way to go, they then begin to put everything into that relationship, the emotions and you name it, just about everything. And they now begin to feel the security that is so critical. We say that in a relationship, or when you talk of men and women, for men, what is security is significance. The accomplishments they make in life, the accolades, that is what really counts. For women, it is security, to be in a relationship where they are loved, where they are affirmed. That is what is critical to them. So you can now see what happens when a woman in this kind of a situation is led to believe that this guy is the guy, and then the betrayal. And it would take time to heal from that kind of a traumatic experience. So my heart goes out to the person who went through this, and I can only pray that God Almighty will provide sufficient grace, that they will be comforted, and that healing will take place. But to answer that question, my take on this is that, if a guy continues to talk, to speak when they are now married, please block them. You see what I can almost read that what is happening here is that the young lady may also be somehow, they haven't really healed from that experience. So there's a sense in which they also feel that talking, provides a kind of, soothing, whatever you might call it. But let this person not waste time with this, this guy who has now gone. Let them forget. Block them. Whatever it takes to make sure there is no more meeting, there's no communication. Cut all forms of communication. Now, if going away from that congregation will help to heal, I would recommend that you move away, because I can tell you, each time you meet this guy, and you will be affected whether you like it or not. So if it is possible, if moving away from that congregation will help for the woman to heal, then by all means, let them find another congregation to worship from. But more importantly, cut all communication. Don't deceive yourself. This person, they are just a ladies' man. They are interested in their marriage, but they also want to use you now for other things. What was what was the other question? Hello. What was the other question?
The other question was growing up in a home where your family is they're non-Adventists, and then getting inspiration after you have grown to be an Adventist, and with regards to the principles of Adventist relationships and marriages, someone getting inspired and wanting to be of that kind, where can they draw their inspiration from? Like, they've never had an experience, and you've come to find this situation when you are already grown up and you're trying to know stuff. Like, where can you draw your inspiration about a Christian relationship or marriage? Something like that first.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. What is important is that there is a beginning point. We all have a past. Here I am. My name is George Mwansa. For many years, I was raised in a Catholic home. Many of the things that our young people go through in the church, like, such as the progressive classes from Busy Bee to Master Guide, I never went through those. But I, I sometimes boast about the fact that I teach those who teach Master Guide. So in that sense, therefore, it's not really a big deal. But the whole point is this: I do not have a full Adventist package kind of history where I started where most young people begin, like my kids. When they came into this world, they came into it as Adventists. They are Adventists, and obviously they are benefiting from quite a lot from just being my children, and also just going to church. All these things they can benefit from. But what is important is not the fact of you having a lack in your past, that you missed out on this. What is important is that at some point you got it. And at that point where you got it, that is where God will begin from with you. God is not going to hold you accountable for a past that you never had an opportunity to have. So for the person who asked this question, it is important to remember God remembered them, and here they are now. They do have a point where they can begin to capture inspiration. But it is also important for them to remember that all things work together for good to those who love the Lord. That really, their past wasn't really, a wasted past, because even in that past, God was still a factor. He was still the controller of the affairs behind scenes. Even though it was an imperfect past, and yet God was active in it. And there is a lot they can draw from that past experience, the lessons of failure and defeat, and a few successes they scored may be brought into this present life. Just to give an example, if in that past they came from a broken marriage, they may now say, okay, I do not want to go through what I went through. I want to have, when I marry myself, I want to make sure that I keep my marriage, and that it's soft. Even a negative experience like that can be used to create inspiration into this new moment. And what is important is that God has given them a beginning, and they have a platform from which to now launch their life into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor, for the responses. I can see there are a few submissions in the chat box. Okay, I'm told. Okay, let me just look at. I'm told the shepherdess has her hand. Let the church nearby or a believer or not. If not, why did Jesus encourage Hosea to marry one if it's encouraged? So that will be our last question for today. If there are no any other submissions, then I'll ask the shepherdess to speak at this point. Thereafter, we'll ask for any volunteer to please pray for us in closing, so that we don't make people faint. Yeah, we'll ask for any volunteers to pray. So at this point, the shepherdess can give this her submission. Thank you.
Just before my wife.
Yes, Pastor.
All right. Just before my wife comes in, there was a question that you asked that, could you repeat that question? We handle that and then we go straight to my wife.
Oh, yes, please. So the question reads, is a prostitute a believer or not? If not, why did Jesus encourage Hosea to marry one if it's discouraged? Yes, that was the question.
Thank you very much for that question. I think I dealt with the Hosea situation. In the Bible, you cannot establish a doctrine or a teaching from just some isolated incident. You can't. That would be a mistake. When you go to the Bible and you begin to look at what the Bible teaches concerning marriage, you will find that there are things that have been collected from both the Old Testament and the New Testament. In the Old Testament, God is very clear and very specific when his people are on their way to the promised land. We told the people, he told Moses, please tell these people when they get to the promised land, they must not allow their children to marry the children of those heathen people. As a matter of fact, God wanted to have everybody killed because their cup of iniquity was full. So the Bible is very clear on that. And this is not the only incident. As you read the Old Testament through and through, the teaching that comes out is that God does not want his people to be associated in a relationship of marriage with people who do not believe in him. We gave even the example of Abraham, who told his servant, go where I came from and get somebody who is a believer like I do, for I do not want my son Isaac to marry any of the women around here, because they come from a background where people do not worship the true God. In the New Testament, it's the same thing. There is a teaching there. There can be no association between believers and unbelievers. It's very clear. So when you take all these teachings, put them together, you can then form a doctrine. But now you can go into the Old Testament and then pick the Hosea's experience, where God was simply trying to teach something. he was saying to Hosea, Hosea, I want the people to know that even though I have been faithful to them, they have continuously been unfaithful to me. That was the whole thing. That is what he wanted to teach the people out of that particular experience. That you cannot pick that one and say, okay, because of this, I am going to marry, unless you hear God speak as directly to you as he did to Hosea. Otherwise, you can't use that. I think my wife can come in.
Thank you so much. I had contributions, but I think it's fine due to time. I've seen that we are really behind time. So instead, maybe I can just pray. Is it okay, Mr. Moderator?
Yes, Shepherdess, you can pray.
Okay. Then let us pray. Glory and honor be unto you, God Almighty. We want to thank you for who you are. Thank you for being with us at this hour when we were discussing these issues relating to courtship and dating. Father, we pray and ask that you will be with the young people, those who are listening, continue to speak to them, for you, Lord, is able to give direction to each one of us. Continue to speak to us, send your spirit, that he may convict us, Lord. If there's anything wrong that we are doing, let the spirit of truth convict us so that we may stop. Father, now as we go to sleep, I pray that you may go with us and watch over us even as we'll be unconscious. Be with us tomorrow, even as we go to the pause. Thank you for hearing our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to everyone who managed to attend. Yes, we can go off on YouTube. Then those who want to chat, we can remain for 5 minutes. So we can go off.
All right, people, good night and vote wisely tomorrow. Yeah, let's keep
Good
praying for
night.
peace
Good night.
and let's maintain peace wherever
Okay.
we live.
Okay, good night, Elder Chibandikwa. Vote wisely also tomorrow.
Hey, no politics here.
Forward.
No, you guys were still live on YouTube. Those who are who are streaming on YouTube live, please disconnect us first. Huh? At National Science Technology, please disconnect us from YouTube. Hey, good night. Naomi and the gift was still the last people to be here. We were the first one. Jessica.
People are not leaving. Let me go.
Going where? Just stay.
Oh, there is another meeting.
everyone tomorrow.
Good night, people. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night, everyone. Bye.
Wait for them to assure